Hello, everyone. I have the most amazing woman here with me today in the Rise with Diana community, Candice Harrison, my friend who has been a pillar in our community, in the Toledo community and abroad. She's an expert in so many different areas. She is about communication, diversity, equity, and inclusion, not from your traditional DE&I, but because of the way that Candice leads with authenticity, with a sense of grace, compassion, and this overall beauty of really supporting, I would say, the human condition from her lived experiences as well as what she does. So please put a round of applause and some snaps together. And if you're driving, honk the horn, okay? For Candice. Candice, welcome to the Rise with Diana podcast. We'd love to learn a little bit about you. What brought you to where you are today? And then a little bit, I want to know about your family and what brings you joy.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on. I have heard your podcast over the last year or so that you and I have been just kind of working together and getting to know each other better. So I just appreciate the opportunity to be on to share a little bit about me. So,
Yes.
how I got to where I am now. It was not a direct path for sure. I know many people have seen, where they talk about how some people can go a straight path and some
Hmm.
people has a winding road. Mine was definitely a winding road significantly. I'm born and raised in Toledo, and I went to public schools for middle school and elementary school. I went to a Catholic private high school. As I was older, it was a decision that was made for me, but it was a transformational decision. I was kind of making a lot of choices that didn't align with the goals that my family had for me, and so the best thing they could have done, looking back, because at the
Yeah.
time I didn't see it that way, but looking back, the best thing that they could have done was just totally remove me from that ecosystem that I was in. We were in poverty. We lived in North Toledo and subsidized housing. And I really just didn't have a lot of exposure. I had some exposure because my grandparents just were like that. They would make sure
Hmm.
that I had access to things, could go, be cultured. We rode the bus a lot of places. So it's
Yeah.
not really anywhere in Toledo I don't know because we
Yeah.
took the bus everywhere or we walked. And so, um, I had some exposure to the cultural things like the museum, the libraries, things like that that might be free for us to go to, but that I could still gain exposure. But big exposure, like out of Toledo, we really didn't have that. Like growing up, we didn't do vacations. Going
Hmm.
to Cedar Point amusement park
Yeah.
locally was our vacation. So, that was kind of how I grew up. And
Yeah.
then as I got older, I became friends with some people from a different community, still Toledo, but just a different neighborhood. Their family was well educated. It's my best friend, actually. We still are friends today. We've been friends almost 40 years. And
Wow.
her family really exposed me to what I wanted my future to look like in terms of education, in terms of just trying to get my life together. And so enrolled in college, and I was away in Michigan for a short time, and then I came back and finished at UT.
Hmm.
And I finished at UT not quickly. I stopped several times because I was on my own and I had to work. Um, I got a lot of financial aid, but what wasn't covered with aid, I had to pay. So I might stop or I might still be in school and work two jobs just to finish. So it took me quite a while. And then during that time, I actually had my son when I was a
Hmm.
junior in college. And, being on a college campus pregnant is not something you see regularly, even in this day and age. But back in 1998, 99, it was
Yeah.
even more taboo. And so it was a lot of, strange looks because I was still young and I was a traditional college student, but I was, pregnant. And committed to finish. So I did. My summer semester ended in June. I had my son in July and I was right back in class in August because I was like, okay, now
Wow.
I need to make this happen. I need to finish. So I did. and finished college, and I was 24 when I finished. So I was 2 years behind of when I
Yeah.
should have graduated. And I started working that right then. I was working in college at a bank. I won't say the branch, like the name of the bank, but I was working at a local bank that still exists. But from there, I went and started as a substitute teacher for the school
Oh,
district. So that
wow.
was my intro to education. Um,
Yeah.
I started as a substitute teacher, but my bachelor's degree was in communications and leadership or journalism.
Mm.
So it was the public relations side of communications with journalism. I had early dreams of being like on air talent. And as I got further into the program and took a broadcasting class, I just knew that that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And having a son, I just knew I wouldn't have the capacity to travel.
Right.
So I really like the public relations side of it because you start learning practices. And so, I mean, you start learning principles before practices. So you really start to dig deep into cases and
Yeah.
learning more about situations and how they were poorly handled or how they were, wonderfully handled. And I was really into that because I always think like I know, like I have a solution, I can fix it.
Yes.
And so that was what made me excited about public relations. So in a career assessment, that was what they said the direction I should go, and I really did enjoy it. But at the time, remember, like I said, we're talking like early 2000s. Like corporations and organizations didn't have big communications departments like they have now. And it was also very much, even still, a who you know, how you get into roles, meaningful roles. And
Hmm.
so I really struggled to get hired into a communications role. And like I said, I'm now raising a kid, I'm a single mom. I can't just be like hanging out doing nothing, or working at the bank was lovely, it was a fun job, you get to meet a lot of people, but it's like, okay, it's not enough money to live. It's barely enough for me to live, much less raise
Right.
a child. So I had to get some steady income. So I started subbing. And I started subbing at a high school. I didn't really prefer elementary school, so I mostly worked in high schools every time I subbed. And then my friend that I was telling you about at the time, her mom worked for the district and introduced a role to me that was in special education, that was more of a resource person. So you would be like, working with students who had different needs, and you would help them manage those needs in a separate setting, which was perfect because then I had a salary and I had benefits. So it was a full-time job. So
Yeah.
I did that for several years. And then um, I was hired for a program at The Ohio State University called Young Scholars Program. And that to date is one of my favorite roles that I've ever had. I still have students that were in my program that have gone to Ohio State. They've graduated. Some of them are now married with their own children. And I met many of
Wow.
them when they were in the sixth grade.
Wow.
So while I was there, I started to realize I'm going to get too many years in education, and it's going to be really difficult for me to transition into what I really want to do. So I enrolled at Spring Arbor and got a master's degree in communications and leadership. And leadership was from the standpoint of leadership in a communication space. So being able to lead departments, lead teams, and lead communication strategy. And so I did that. In the process of doing that, I got married,
Hmm.
bought a home, had another child in that
Hmm.
little window of time. Um,
Yes.
and started looking for jobs. And so I took a very entry level role. It was a role that was difficult for me to take because it was lateral move, in terms of salary. I was very entry level, and I felt like I had 10 years of experience, but it was in some other area that was not relevant to communications. So I had to be willing to, if I wanted to get into the space, I needed to take a role that was less than what I felt I should have. But in all honesty, it was the exact role because it was at a hospital and it was so much to learn.
Mm.
So much to learn in communications, but also so much to learn navigating HIPAA and navigating different departments, working with physicians, which can be a unique experience. um,
Yeah.
so it was a lot to learn, and I could not have come into that role in leadership. I thought I could, but I'm very happy that I didn't. And so I had a very supportive boss at that job. who still continues to support me through LinkedIn because she's just so proud of my trajectory because it went
Yeah.
very fast. And I tell everybody, life has been very good to me in that the trajectory that I had went a lot faster than it probably would for someone else. I'm very fortunate, very blessed in that way. But again, I was already 10 years into my career when I started this
Yeah.
process. So
Yeah.
from there, I went to serve as director of healthcare marketing at University of Toledo Medical Center. So I went from an entry level role that I worked in for just a year to a director level at a different hospital here in Toledo. And there, did my work. And again, was not a fit. It was hospital setting is great, not a fit for me. And at the time, quite honestly, the person who was supervising me, she and I were not a fit. And so that became evident over time. And my position was eliminated. So then kind of had a mix of education and communications, went on to work another community engagement position back at the school district. So
Yeah.
here again, I worked at the school district 3 times. You'll hear about the third time in just a minute. So love that, built a lot of community relationships, helped the school district build relationships, start partnerships that didn't exist and they still currently exist 10 years later.
Mm.
And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to full time. I need to work in leadership and communications, doing work that I love. So was served on a committee at the Toledo Zoo. And from that role, I was hired as a manager, a communications manager, senior communications manager to run all of our external communications for the zoo, which the zoo is an internationally recognized zoo. So
Mhm.
when you're doing external relations, it's a lot of media relations, social media, video content, things like that. But you're also working on international stories because, people think Toledo Zoo, but they don't understand all of the work and the investments that they have in conservation across the world, and
Right.
that they're world recognized in some of those areas for conservation. So it's a lot of national media stories, some good, some not so exciting. And then from there, Toledo Museum of Art.
Hmm. Hmm.
Again, another one of our cultural assets locally that is internationally recognized. And I had an opportunity to serve in leadership there. And then my last communications role was at the Toledo Public School District, where again, I was related,
Yeah.
responsible for external communications there. And I worked there for 5 years through COVID. One thing I forgot to mention that is really important was a mentor that I had when I was getting
Hmm.
my master's. And one of the things you had to do was have a capstone opportunity where you had to work in the industry. And again, I didn't have the experience. And so a lot of people really didn't know me and they weren't giving me opportunities to get this. And so she ran her own business. She was a director at an institution here and decided to start her own thing. And she was real deep into, working on her own. And I just approached her randomly because I had heard her speak and said, here's what I need to get my master's. Here's the experience that I have. I can learn whatever it is you need. I'm willing to work. I don't need to be paid. I just need the experience. And
Hmm.
she gave that opportunity and she still paid me.
Oh,
Um,
I love it.
and she is someone that I still lean on now. We are friends, but we are also colleagues in the communications world. And she's somebody that I hold very deep as it relates to my success in the role because she's always kind of been like a person who I could lean on for here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Because she nails it every time. And so I'm very thankful for her friendship, but also her mentorship.
I love it. Yeah.
So I feel like I
Oh,
just been rambling.
no, I love it. See, but whenever we have people on, it's critical to understand the journey.
Hmm.
It's not, as you said, it's not a straight shot, but here
Hmm.
are a few things I heard. I have a goal.
Hmm.
This is where I want to go. And you steadfastly went towards that goal. You
Yeah.
also said, it may not be upward mobility. Maybe I need to go over here to
Hmm.
get this information. And I'm humbly accepting that. Why? Because I have a vision and I know I want to go here. You also did not let adversity stop you.
Mhm.
You took the adversity and you actually put it into practice and helping it give you the fuel to move forward. Why? Because you had a goal.
Had to
So
go.
I really do believe that it's not something that just is a straight shot, but
Mm-mm.
you got to know how to shoot your shot. And you
Mhm.
did. And I love that. And that's what I love most about you because you now bring all of that into your current role, tell us what your current role is.
So currently, I am Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for a company headquartered here in Toledo, my hometown. SSOE is an internationally ranked architecture and engineering firm, and we pride ourselves on doing our best work for our clients, colleagues, and communities. And
Yeah.
all of that is really like a wonderful mashup of all of my
Right.
experiences, personal and professional experiences, to a role. And you are correct. Having a goal, you do have to humble yourself sometimes, and
Right.
it's hard because it was hard being in that communications coordinator role, and I would be working beside people that I would just be thinking like, I can do your job, but I was not there to do their job, but I felt like I
Right.
could. So it does take, some humility.
Yeah.
And it also just takes humility to stay in your lane, like period.
Yes.
So
Period.
it mhm. So COVID happened. Okay. And
Yeah.
then, like I said, I was working for our school district and it was a lot of work to be done. It was a lot of work to do. We were doing a lot all the time. And it was just, I felt like I had done a lot for the district. I love the school district. I love the students. I love the leadership. But I, at that time, did not see a trajectory that was upward for me. I felt like the role that I was in was going to be where I was at. And remember, I started my career journey later. So
Correct.
I'm like, I have a lot to offer, a lot
Hmm.
of leadership left in me, and I have a lot that I want to do, and I'm not sure I can do it here because it's just I'm not an educator, so it's only so
Right.
far up you can go, and so I was like, let me kind of see what's out there. Well,
Yes.
position kept coming in my LinkedIn, and I was like, wonder why they need this position. And instantly I thought something must have happened. So
Yep.
now they need a DEI person, to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I kept kind of, seeing it, but just blowing it off. And so
Right.
there are like tools for human resources or recruiters to know like if you kind of checked out a position or whatever. And it so happened the person at the time who was in charge of recruiting was someone who had heard me speak before, and she and I had met before when she was at another employer, and we started the conversation about the role. And so I moved forward with the application, submitted my resume and so forth. And then what ended up happening, so I just didn't think I would get contacted about the job because it was so far away from what I was doing in terms of what the job was asking for. But I had also gained so many of those skills because when you're working for in a city, when you're working with organizations that serve the public, you are already doing DEI communications because
Correct.
you need to know how to communicate with the public that you're talking to. So
Yes.
if I'm at the museum and I'm speaking to donors, that looks very different than if I'm out in the community talking to, community members about new programs that are coming. So I was already starting to understand how to, appeal to different communities, how to speak to different communities, and how to think about different communities, which is also something that has proven to be very helpful, something from my past that I brought to this role,
Yeah.
understanding that when you're speaking about something, you're not really communicating necessarily what you want to say. You're communicating what you want the other person to understand of what you're
Mm.
saying. So sometimes how
Mm.
you deliver that makes a difference. And so I think all of those skills, um, the fact that I'm just a natural born extrovert and really
Mhm.
committed to solutions, um, I think that could have been something that maybe was impressive. And I'll be very honest, I started my journey with interviewing. The very first interview I had was with the CEO.
Yes.
Very first interview, she said the CEO wants to meet with you. And I
Mhm.
said, first I was like, why? That was my
Yeah.
first question, like, why? Why would the CEO want to meet with me first? Because,
I love it.
usually the top is the
Yes.
person you get to see or talk to last. You go
Hmm.
through all of the other people, and then the last person, is the highest person. And she said, no, you're going to report to him, and he is going to have the process be um, employee led, but he wants
Hmm.
to make sure before he presents you to the company that you are even a fit to report to him, somebody that he feels like he can work with. And I was like, that was a unique perspective, and I welcome it. And it was virtual. Um we were actually going to meet in person because people were, back in person just with masks and things, but it actually ended up being a really bad storm, and so it ended up being a snowstorm, and so it ended up being virtual, which worked out for me because I was so afraid to cancel the interview, but I had COVID. And when they
Yeah.
told me that it was going to be virtual, I was so happy because that meant I didn't have to cancel and reschedule,
Yeah.
possibly, lose out on this opportunity. So we had a great first conversation. And then from there, I had several interviews after that, and I was offered the position, and it was the first position. They made the decision based on, our new CEO taking over as the CEO. He had a different vision when he started, and then national unrest started happening. People were home and really having the opportunity to just sit with it and focus on it. And it kind of opened his eyes to some of the experiences that his own employees were having. And he was talking to some of his employees of color and learning different things that
Hmm.
they were experiencing. And then he started to look around at, as a company, who we were, and he wanted to take DEI more seriously. And so
Yeah.
at first they started with a consultant to see, do we need a consultant or do we need a person? And the consultant determined that they needed someone to do the work full time. So
Yeah.
I was the first person to be hired in the role and really kind of build the department, build the work that we're doing, build our strategy from scratch.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of that because we've come so much farther than I could have even imagined in just a short time. I've been there 2.5 years. And
Yes.
we have accomplished much in that 2.5 years.
Well, you all can feel that, right? I mean, if you all are listening in, can we just put some virtual snaps out in the world? Because you can hear from Candice's story why the CEO wanted to meet with her. She has been preparing. And here's what we all have to know is that we are all being prepared. This is a journey along a path. And if you're willing to accept it with
Mhm.
all of the tools of, and if you can hear it in her voice, there is a passion in her voice. There is love for her community in her voice. There is this reaching out for help through mentorship, right? To say, I need some more sharpening here. And there's just so many elements to you that if I were the CEO, I would want to meet you first. And it's the right way. That is the right way. In all of that, Candace, what is it that brings you joy in what you do, in 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 what you do and how you just walk the earth? What is it that just brings you joy?
So at work, what brings me joy is that I am responsible for um, a significant amount of change in a good way.
Yes.
Um, I love I had a person, if he hears this, I won't say his name, but he'll know who he is because I said you're the first person to do this and I really appreciated it. I spoke to the company, and we had a trainer come and do some training with our company, and I got a private message that said, there were some things that you talked about that I just don't know if I agree with and I don't understand. He said, but I want to understand your perspective.
Mm,
Can I put some time on your calendar so we can just talk about it? And the conversation was around privilege.
hmm.
And there's this big misconception, I'm sorry, that when you have privilege, it somehow indicates that you didn't earn it. And because people have politicized the term privilege, and sometimes it removes your ability to see that you actually do have privilege. And so I gave an example of myself. I talked about my background, which I just shared with you, and I share with anybody because I'm not ashamed of anything that I've been through to get to where I am.
Hmm.
And I explained I came from poverty, went
Right.
to school, graduated, I'm married, I have children who went to private schools. We live in suburbs. So, to many people that I grew up with, or even some people in my own family, my life is different.
Hmm.
And it is not because I didn't earn it. It is just because it is. That was, based on the things that I've taken on growing up, and, the things that I decided to do for myself put me in a different position than some of the other people. And it's not to say it's better or worse, it's just different. So
Right.
because of that, I sit in rooms that some people that I know do not go to. And
Hmm.
so it allows me a privilege
Yeah.
of sorts, even as a Black woman. And what I do with the privilege is what's important. So hearing about opportunities for scholarships that maybe people that I know don't know about, or here people are looking for jobs. Here, I know about this person, or go talk to that person. That is how you utilize your privilege. And so what I tried to explain to him, how he could use as a man, I gave him an example. Think about
Hmm.
the women on your team, and think about their career trajectory and yours. And then think about, you got people out on a work site. Who do you think, whose voice do you think has more weight in that space?
Hmm.
Okay, then that allows you privilege. And how you do that is by supporting the women on your team, understanding they don't have the same level of power that you have. And how can you help elevate them is how you use your privilege. So just through that dialogue, he was able to understand like where I was coming from, that it wasn't like an attack and saying like, hey, you're a straight white man. That means you have privilege and you didn't earn it. You were just given to you. I think some of the things that have happened in our history does allow white men to have a different, the worldview on white men is different than some of the people, that are of color or women or LGBTQ friends and things like that. But I think all in all, even if you've earned it, or even if you didn't want it, you have it. And so the
Hmm.
biggest thing is understanding I am in a unique space. How do I use that space? And that's what I love about our CEO. He understands his role
Yes.
100%, but he's willing to use it for the betterment
Yes.
of our company and betterment of our industry, which ultimately impacts our community. So
Yes.
that's what brings
And can
me
we
joy.
shout out? Can we just shout out Vince? Okay, can we snap it up? Because we both have that affinity. Because you are the one, really, honestly, who opened up my eyes to SSOE. You opened up my eyes to this beautiful com- community of people that was like right across the street from where I used to work as a young professional. I just never knew what they did until you came
Nobody
on the
did.
scene, right? So I'm so grateful for the way that you walk this earth. What brings you joy in your life, like as a community member, and just what you do outside of work?
So outside of work, I love, what brings me joy is fun. And well, first family. So my family, my my immediate family, my husband's been with our Toledo Police Department for almost 12 years. He's a detective, and I'm so proud of the
Let's
work that
go.
he does.
Yes.
He probably goes to work every day like, this is what I do. But it's like, it's great work. It's like,
Yes.
changing people's lives, helping to better our community. So I love that. So I'm very proud of my husband and our relationship. And I have two children. My son is 25. He was my
Yes.
firstborn that I had at UT, and our relationship is it's just is we grew together.
Yeah.
Our lives, when he was born, it changed me. I had to change. I didn't have a choice. Well, I had a choice, but I wanted to be a good mother. So I chose
Yeah.
to slow down. And having him, we've been broke. I've been single with him. We've been in an apartment, but no matter what, I've always been committed to, teaching him. He could read And because even his kindergarten teacher said, did he go to preschool? And he did.
Mhm.
But she said he just knows so much than most of the kids coming in. But that's how my grandmother did for me. I didn't baby
Yeah.
talk to him. You know, when he was little, I talked to him. I talked to him like he was a little person, but I said words like they needed to be said. And we just, like I said, we've been through a lot together. And so I feel a deep connection to him, and he brings me joy, even though sometimes he also is a source of challenge.
Yeah.
They say whatever you gave your parents, your kids are gonna give it back to you 3 times. That is him. And so I
I
love it, and I love every bit of being his mom. And then my
love it.
daughter, my youngest, my
Yes.
baby girl, she and I, not only is she my daughter, she's less extroverted, much less extroverted than I am. She has
Mhm.
her core group of friends, but she's always been like, she likes to be home and she likes to be with her family. She tells my husband and I everything like we're her friends, and we have a friendship in addition to her being my daughter. And so
Mhm.
I love that. I'm loving watching her grow, learning how to drive. She's, got these lifelong friends. It's funny, her lifelong friends are like 16 years old, like 10 years long, because she met him in
Yeah.
kindergarten and she's only
Yeah.
16. Pretty much having the same friends all along, and, getting exposure now to new relationships and organizations in school. And she's wonderful. Her grades are great. And she's just really doing her thing. And it makes me very proud because I know, um, I just know that her life is going to be successful, and it's
Yes.
literally watching it from the ground up. So just enjoying watching my children grow. So I love that. But then my like family that don't live outside, my aunts and my cousins, we're very close, more like sisters, and I
Yes.
just love them very deeply. And I love my grandmother. I'm very committed to my
Yes.
family. So that brings me joy. But being with them and having fun and laughing, I just enjoy that because the work I do is intense. I do
Yes.
intense work.
Yes.
Even though it's for the good,
Yes.
even though it's for the good, when you hear what they talking about on the news,
Yes.
people saying DEI hire and making it some sort of
Mhm.
negative thing, like we don't have to work double just to get the same access as others.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation. But the work we do is intense. So just being able to have a good time,
Yes.
I enjoy, and I love community. I'm
Yes.
a natural born relationship builder and connector. I even have that in my
Mhm.
LinkedIn profile. I'm a community connector.
Mhm.
I love my community. I've never left. I could have.
Yeah.
Gotten recruited several times, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime in the future I might uproot, but right now this is home, and I
Yeah.
love it. And I love the relationships that I've built. So I just love community and family. That
I
brings me
love all of
joy
it.
and fun.
And fun. And Candace, we have always been in the same circles.
Mhm.
And even with our kids being younger, I've always seen that halo of light that definitely surrounds you. And I connect with you because, and people in Rise with Diana podcast land, you need to go for what it is that you know is
Mhm.
yours. And you don't have to shrink down. And that's the thing I want to hear from you is, we have chosen, you and I have chosen a path that's not for the lighthearted.
Mhm.
We don't settle. We don't follow mediocrity. We don't look for the easy way often, but the easy way comes. We are always doing things that are outlying.
Mhm.
What helps you move out of shrinking down so that other people don't feel insecure around you? How do you have that center within yourself to know that you are worth being you?
It's funny you said that, and I have to be totally honest with you. That came with age.
Hmm.
That was something that did used to bother me. Somebody put it into good perspective. Somebody here in Toledo at UT, Valerie Boston, said to me,
I love
Candice,
it.
I was explaining how sometimes I can be much for people. I'm not for everybody. And I had to understand that and really, quite honestly, not care about it.
Hmm.
She said, Candice,
That part.
when you walk into a room, she said, you take up a lot of space. And I thought about it like I do. And I have a spirit of if it's not getting done, nobody's gonna say it. Like, when they say, are there any questions? And nobody's saying anything. And I'm like, I have a question. I have a question because I'm like, somebody needs to.
Yeah.
That's, or at a funeral and it's like 2-minute remarks. I'm looking like nobody gonna say anything, about this person. So it's like I have a natural is and it's not because I don't really prefer attention. It's just to
Hmm.
be in the leadership role.
Yes.
Um, and so when I was younger and especially earlier in my career, I was very concerned about people who um I perceived as not liking me or feeling like they were intimidated by me when we were in the same role. Or I've often been intimidating to people who have been above me. And I know that it's because I don't operate in mediocrity. If I'm doing
Mm-mm.
something, that's how come I tell people if they ask me, can you do this? I'll say no, because if I take something on, I really want to be able to do it well. And
That's
I'm
right.
not really sure I can, with the
That's
time
right.
I have, because I don't want to just do something just to do it. Um,
Right.
I want to do it and do it well. And that's been kind of my what people know about me in places that I've worked is that I just don't half ass, if I can say that.
That's right. That's
Um,
right. I
and
like that.
so
Clap that up.
yes, definitely clap for that because so many people in leadership have gotten to a point of mediocrity and status quo. And it's like, let's just do this to get it done. But then when you get somebody like me that's going to come in, that's going to be dynamic, that's going to take the role seriously, that's going to build all the relationships to make it great, leverage my personal and professional relationships to get organizations on board that typically we might not be able to afford type of thing. I want the work to reflect all that I put into it. So it needs
That's
to be
right.
good and perfect as it can get. And so I've had people who I've reported to often and mostly women
Yep.
um who have just been uncomfortable with my style of work and they've interpreted it as I'm trying to come for their job. It's never been interpreted as like she is great and she just likes to do a good job. It's always not, it couldn't be that. It's got to be that I want their job, which is not the case. Um and so I used to be really bothered by it. And like, well, why do they feel like this? And I, trying to and then I would shrink a little bit. Or I would call it dumbing myself down and like, you know, how somebody say, good job. Well, thank you, but
Yeah.
it
It's
like
just this.
try to shrink it down. And then I started thinking about it like, no, because now I'm not getting the credit and I'm not doing work for credit, but I'm also not doing work so that other people can get the credit either.
Mhm.
And I want to be respected for the work that I do because this is my legacy, this is my history on this earth. And I want people to understand what I contributed. And so I stopped caring about it. And if
Mhm.
you are intimidated by me, that's your problem because nobody can ever say that I was ever rude to them. I've always been loyal to anyone I've ever worked with or worked for. I've also been very supportive. People who have worked for me, some people who have worked for me are now leading organizations, and they came to me as an intern. So
Yes.
I've been able to help employees grow into the leaders that they ultimately became in the future. So one thing about me is I've never been intimidated by anybody under me. And I've had people work under me during the era of like social media rising in organizational usage. And so I love social media and I love to use it. But what I started learning is that people reporting to me understood how to use it better for the people we were trying to reach. See, I'm just using it as me on social media, just using all the different tools and things like, oh, this is cool. But they know how to use it to reach people. So I had to know
Right.
what I didn't know. Like, okay, social media is under me, but I don't have to do it. They know how to
Right.
do it. Let's get it going and do something great. And that's the thing. I gotta know I don't know how to do that as well. And so
Right.
let's get somebody who does. And that person might be 24, but so what? They're great. And I'm gonna let them be great because
That's
when
right.
they're great, our department is great. So ultimately that makes me look great also. That's
Yeah.
how you have to look at that, but you have to be confident in your own self. Usually, people who are intimidated know that they're not giving their all. They know
That's
that.
right.
And when you come in and you're doing a great job, it really, really enhances the fact that you're just not doing as well as you should be, or could be, or even want to be.
Right.
And so they don't want that. So I had to stop worrying about that because that's not on me. That's on them. And this is just how I am. It was
Yes.
no mistake. I was born, I went through a lot. I could have been a totally different person, and I came out somewhat successful.
Right.
And this is the person that I was born to be. This is who God made me, and it just is what it is. If you can't handle that or you don't like it,
It
that's okay. That's
it
okay.
is what it
It is what
is.
it
And
is.
I love this because a lot of people need to rewind this part and listen to it again. The elements of really understanding your worth, your
Mhm.
value comes from a sense of knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you have really you deserve an entire masterclass on understanding this because this is what I see in our work. You and I are doing work together to really help women, to
Mhm.
help people in the organization, specifically at the point SSOE, but really as a whole, letting us know we have to own our value.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can't try to get our value from other people
No.
because that's scarcity. And so that's often what I see when we have these roles in women in leadership. It's because we haven't really taken time to understand the way that you articulated clearly your journey and your story
Mhm.
is one of beauty and elegance, wisdom, and this
Mhm.
understanding of where you fit in the ecosystem and knowing your lane. See,
Yeah.
the problem is a lot of people, they just really figure they because they don't really know their lane, they want to take from someone else's lane, right?
Mhm.
And so this is a lesson
Mhm.
in leadership. It's a lesson in leadership that goes with the times. And as a
Absolutely.
result of that, I want to be connected with you forever. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that you saw in the All Rise Live Global Summit, not just in our second year, but in our first year. What did you see in that that said we should be a part of that?
What I saw was an opportunity for people who are early in their career or even further in their career that really were kind of on the edge and just needed that push to jump into the person that they want to become. Whatever that
Mhm.
is, it could be professionally, it could be personally. And that's what I loved about it. Was all that it was going to be some personal development, learning how to, advocate for yourself, learning how to come into the office and be confident and things like that. But it was also some personal opportunities for self-reflection and just self-awareness and growth. And I think even if you're confident in your work, you still may have some areas in your personal life that you're not confident about.
Yes, and it's critical.
Oh, and I was gonna say, you just also exude like support and love and encouragement. And I wanted to get behind that because I think people should have access to that. And if all we have
Mhm.
to do is support financially and kind of push the message and send some of our employees, I was happy to do that.
And I'm so grateful because SSOE has been really a beacon of hope for me. It's like when I'll just timestamp this that Michelle Obama said, "Hope is making a comeback." That's
Yeah,
what I feel like SSOE is doing for me, and what you bring to the earth that you walk on. And
thank
when you
you.
step into, honestly, you do take up this room, and it gives me hope. So I want to ask you, do you feel you're doing your greatest work now? And because people know in the Rise with Diana community, I'm writing a book called Do Your Greatest Work at Work Now. Do you
Mhm.
feel you're doing your greatest work now? And do you have something that's calling you?
So I feel like I am doing my greatest work now, but I also felt very strongly that I was doing my greatest work when I was with the school district
Hmm.
in times of crisis. That is something that I miss. I love crisis communication. That's when I think I thrive the most. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that in that space, I did my best work there. A lot of relationship building, a lot of community perception changing and things like that. But now I've transitioned into a more global um, presence and we have a global footprint. So now I feel like I'm doing my best work, but it's impacting more people on a larger scale. And so I am very proud of the work that I'm doing and I'm content with the work that I'm doing. I love
It's
it.
beautiful. I love that you love that. And I love being working with you. So the Rise with Diana community knows that SSOE is my partner
Yes.
in this work. I love that we are creating beautiful opportunities. And what I do know is that there are some people in our community who are really struggling, right? And they're just really feeling like a lack of hope. They
Mhm.
don't know, can I be authentic?
Mhm.
Can I be myself? What does that look like? How do I show up like that? How can I be bold? How can I take up a room? And they're depressed. They feel a sense of anxiety. They feel worried all the time. They're constantly second guessing themselves. What word of hope can you give her today as one or two things that she should start stepping into?
So one thing to step into is if you are in a room, you are meant to be there, regardless of how
Mm.
you got there, regardless of, if someone has made you feel like you only got the position because, well, it doesn't matter. I got the position
I
now.
know that's right.
So if you are in the role, you are meant to be there.
Yes.
And when you're there, be the best you can be. Don't shrink
Mm.
down, don't sit in meetings and don't contribute. Um, be there and take up space. So that's one thing
Yes.
I would say.
So good.
And another thing that I would say to a person is if you're struggling in some areas, like specific areas, don't be afraid to make changes. And that might include talking to somebody. Or
Mhm.
for me, it was, chairing a luncheon, and all the things I learned inspired me to make some changes in my life, in my health. And so whatever those changes are, talking to somebody, getting a mentor, getting a coach, whatever it is, if you're like, hey, I'm doing really well in work, but I still have this imposter syndrome that's hanging
Mm.
over me. How do I get rid of that? Find somebody who trains people how to get out of that rut. Because as long as that's over you, yes, call Diana. She can help you, because as long as you have that hanging over you, you
That's
don't feel
right.
freedom. You don't feel, because I feel 100% freedom in the work that I'm doing, because nobody is restricting me with the work that I'm trying to accomplish. And not like they just like, hey, here, do whatever you want to do. It's still strategic. It's still, part of our company goals. But what I'm saying is no one's like, oh, that's too bold. No, we probably shouldn't do that. Or making me feel as though I don't belong there. I feel as
Right.
though I belong there. And there's freedom with that, because it's a confidence that comes with that. My colleagues, I
Yes.
have good work friends. It's a group of women that I work with that sometimes we spend time outside of work that I look at as like, people will say like you need to get a posse, but that's like my work crew, people that I like and trust, and that support me and I support them. I like that. And it's a freedom, like I said, that comes with having those things that have been preventing you from getting ahead, removing those barriers. You just feel a lot differently, and you perform better, and you feel better about the work you're doing. You show up better.
Oh, okay. Okay, y'all. Go ahead and honk your horn. I just always visualize someone driving and going, I know that's
I know
right.
that's right.
I know that's right. I'm from the Baptist church, so we do call and response. Amen. And the church said, listen, Candice, you are a joy.
Thank
You
you.
bring me joy. And I quoting Anita Baker. And I really do know that you have so much more in store. The world is really benefiting from your presence. And there's so much more. I can feel it. And but
Thank
where you're
you.
at right now, you definitely are making that impact. And of course, your kids, your beautiful son and daughter will give you and adorn you as the Proverbs woman that I know that you are. And and folks, guess what? We haven't even scratched the surface of what Candace does in our community beyond SSOE. That's going to probably be part B. But for right now, thank you for blessing us with your presence and everything. Thank you for
Thank
being on the
you.
podcast.
Thank
Well,
you for
thank you,
having
every
me.
yes, everyone. Please clap it up, hit some like, subscribe. Candace, where can we follow you? How can we learn more either about you, SSOE? What can we do?
You can follow me on LinkedIn if you're interested in learning more about what SSOE is doing. You can just visit ssoe.com, and all of our work around diversity, equity, and inclusion is there. All of the strides that we've made over the years, even before I got there, is included. And if you just want to learn more about me or connect with me, I am on LinkedIn. And my profile is Candice Harrison, and you can look at Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and find me.
Yes,
I'm on
find her.
Instagram too, though. I should say I'm on Instagram if you want the personal me.
Yes. And by the way, she helped me out a lot during COVID. There's so many beautiful gems that she was dropping to help me stay like connected and cool with all her little, she had so many different places where we could go for so many different things. You're just like QVC and everything. So thank you so much, Candice. And we're so
Thank you.
grateful.
Thank
And for
you.
everyone out there in Rise and Diana podcast land, like, subscribe, please share this with someone. Let them
Mhm.
get to know all the beautiful work that Candice is doing in SSOE. All right, until next time. Bye.
Bye.